calve in here, and we'll calve about 600 cows on this ranch. Synchronized AI cows, so they come pretty fast. And then we'll kick the first half of the pairs, and then the second half of the pairs. Switch that every year. And I'm getting on the summer pastures on each side at a little bit different time. I try to change season of use, or whatever you want to call it, on those summer pastures every year. I try to change it up a little bit. And what's behind me that you guys are facing is our winter pasture. I actually have two winter pastures. We fenced in half. And at the very bottom, way down there, is Antelope Creek, and that'll be our north winter pasture that typically I'll graze for the first half of the winter, and then move into the south winter pasture where the better protection is later on. And I'll talk about some of that later. Right beside, we drove by the well on the way up here. It's about halfway up the hill in the rocks. And like we said earlier, that well's 3,800 foot. Water static level 600 foot. And the pump sits at 1,000 foot. It'll pump about 35 gallons a minute. These dry years, I have had it run out of water on me, and it recharges pretty fast, but we can pump it dry. And that's only if something goes wrong, but it can happen. These are our storage tanks right over here to my left. Like we said earlier, there's 30,000 gallons of storage there, and we set it up where we can add another 30, but the storage more storage wouldn't really help me even when I pump it dry, because it usually goes dry because I lose a float or something like that, so then the storage tanks drain in. So you can see some of the challenges maybe that we had a little bit digging through those rocks to get up here, and we just leased an excavator and got it done. Ed ran it for most of it. We run both ways out of the storage tank. It goes downhill that way, and we put in big loops. So if there's an issue somewhere on part of the ranch, we can shut that loop off and still get water back around to everywhere else. We don't lose water on the whole side of the ranch just if there's an issue somewhere. And we haven't had much issues at all as far as leaks or anything like that. We've had one leak, yeah.
What kind of pipe?
It's HDPE pipe. We ran 3-inch main lines in 2-inch trunk lines. No smaller than 2-inch anywhere on this ranch.
I think, what's our 300 foot of drop from here to your lowest point, I think?
There's 600 foot of drop from these storage tanks to down at the bottom on each end, the lowest water. So we got pressure reducers, and having those loops, we had to sink at the same elevation and get everything where it jives together.
NRCS did all the engineering.
NRCS did the engineering. Me and Ed designed the plan, and NRCS engineered it.
So did you guys choose to upsize, make it bigger?
Yeah, so we chose to upsize the main lines and the feeder lines to get as much flow as we wanted. Plus, I always say, when you're designing a water line, do you expand your ranch, or do you expect your ranch to get smaller? Everyone says no. Well, would you like to add on? Well, yeah, if I could buy the neighbors over there, that'd be pretty nice. Well, wouldn't you like to have water line enough to go ahead and go on instead of bringing a main line all the way across again? So that we always design everything to get bigger. I mean, we might not, maybe we will, or maybe you can sell some water to the neighbor if things are good. There's all kinds of things you can do if you design that water line with enough capacity to do that. But if you under-design it, you're about going to start over. We've done that too. We've learned from our mistakes, I guess.
Chad, what was the test weight on
The test weight on that pipe, it was at least 200 pounds, I don't remember. We ran HD 11, whatever, or HD 7, sorry, 4-inch from the well to the storage tanks, 4-inch, and it had a sidewall of at least a ½ inch in it. For heat, the water's 105 degrees coming out of the wellhead, which is not super hot, but it's warm enough, and then the back pressure from the only electricity is the pump that's 1,000 foot down in the well, and it pumps it all the way up here to these storage tanks. So that's the only electricity on the entire system. It's gravity fed everywhere.
So what's the water cool down to in the storage tanks before it goes?
Right. The question was, what's the water cool down to? On a normal usage cycle, if I don't have these storage tanks empty, it'll be ground temperature, 55 degrees or so by the time it gets down to the house or any of the tanks. But if I'm overusing the system and the storage tanks aren't very full, it's pretty warm. It'll be 80, 90 degrees coming out of the hydrant sometimes. That's not typical though.
You want to talk about the different types of tanks you use too, because you've used quite a few different kinds out here, and what worked best and what you do again or wouldn't do, or
Sure, yeah, I mean, still, I really like the tire tanks, and the bigger you can get them, the better, in my mind. We got I don't even know how many there is, close to 50, I think, tire tanks. Probably not quite that many, but pretty close, and on the other ranch as well. We like them really good. For winter tanks, I've used quite a few different things, and we'll drive by. Maybe you guys saw the Cobet waters, the little black rings in the trail. I have some of those out on pasture. I really like those. They'll get ice on them. You got to chop ice on them, but they don't freeze. The water line, I never have a water line freeze on them. Yeah, that's what I really like. I go check water every day in the winter anyway, so a little bit of ice doesn't bother me. They're super easy to chop, really nice. We got the buried concrete winter tanks, and I hate them. I wish I could take a loader and smash them in and throw them away and put Cobets in, but I have them, so I use them. They work good. They're a good tank, and they work well. If it's your only water source, I believe, for your cows in that pasture, they'll keep it open every day, and a little bit of ice on them again, like I say, is no big deal. But what happens in this big winter pasture that's roughly, I don't know, between 1,500 and 2,000 acres maybe, and there's at least 5 water sources in this particular winter pasture. They might leave that concrete winter tank for 2 weeks and not come graze back over there again. And so by the end of that, if it's below 0 and the wind's blowing, I got ice all the way to the bottom that I've been chopping every day, and I hate it. I really don't like it. The one thing I do really like for a pasture winter tank is a smaller tire tank, because out in the winter we don't have calves out here, it's just cows. Like an 8 or 10 foot tank with a bleeder valve on it, and a little tiny 1/4 inch bleeder valve will keep a smaller tank open almost in any weather. The bigger 12, 13 foot tire tanks with a bleeder valve, it might keep an area of them open, but you still got to chop all ice on them. That's just my own personal. I know everybody has their own theories or whatever they like.
So Chad, what kind of valve do you have up here to shut off the pump?
Oh, in the storage tanks, it's just a reverse sump pump float, just a hanging float like a sump pump has. And when it gets, it'll drop down and turn it on, and then on a normal day, that well will pump roughly 16,000 gallons of water with usage and what it takes for that to float back up and shut itself off. So on a normal day, we're pumping 16 to 20,000 gallons of water out of that well. Hard usage days, it's a lot more than that. But
Or the wire runs all the way down here.
yeah, it's hardwired from
okay.
here. Yep. And I do have a wireless. You can see it on the one white breather pipe here. It's a tank monitoring system, and it works on the cell phone tower. So you can imagine it works not very well. Your cell phones don't work very good sometimes, but it's been a good system. I've been fighting it here lately, but it'll text me every day at a certain time of day how much water's in my tanks, and then it will also alert me if the level drops more than normal. It learns what our usage is, and so it'll text me an alert on my phone if the water level drops too much or something's not right. Or I can text it and it will report back to me what the level is in the tanks. It's a good system when it works. Really good.
Does the pump have to cycle more than once, several times a day?
The pump can cycle more than once a day. It usually does not. It'll usually the tanks are full in the morning. It'll be good until noon, 1 o'clock. The well will kick on. It'll run for, depending on when it was hot. I mean, it'd run for 10, 12 hours before it would shut off again. But like a day like today, it'd probably run 6 hours or something.
Ted, talk about the soil that you encountered from down there to up here.
So
The Pierce
I had a question about this earlier. So what the School of Mines, someone from the School of Mines, I should preface that, but told me that this formation was formed from a glacier, but not from this last ice age. It was the ice age before that. And so as we were digging up here from the well to put in these lines, we ran across almost 30 different kinds of soil. I mean, just anything you can imagine. So that theory made sense to me, that this formation was rolled up here, and it's a plausible explanation to me, I guess. But
And up here, the purest, whitest sand that you would ever have seen, where they put the whole.
There's some really nice, yeah, when we dug this pit for these, I mean, it's just the most perfect playground sand you've ever seen, just really pretty. No rocks at all either. We never hit a rock digging that great big pit. And we dug it big enough that that big crane truck could back down in there and set those tanks.
Those tanks were 9 foot tall.
Yeah, 9 or 10 foot tall tanks, yeah. Yeah,
And so then how much dirt did you put back over the top of them?
quite a little. I mean, right on top here, there's hardly any, foot and a half.
Oh, okay.
2 foot of
I
dirt.
was just wondering if you buried them like
Yeah,
another.
no, if you get close, you can see the top of the concrete.
Okay.
So I need to get it filled in a little better, but some of it's blown and whatnot. But yeah. So we're gonna. I'll take some more questions, but we're gonna head down this hill and stop down about halfway and look at a couple teepee rings, some rock ones that maybe somebody hasn't seen, and we can talk a little bit down there.